man of God arrives in Bethel by the word of the Lord. He comes from Judah, traveling north across the border into the kingdom of Israel, carrying a message for King Jeroboam. The king stands by the altar at Bethel, the flagship sanctuary of his newly established religious system. The man of God cries out against the altar, naming a future king who does not yet exist. Josiah, he says, identifying a Davidic ruler generations away, will sacrifice the priests of the high places on you and burn human bones on you. Before anyone can respond, he announces a sign. The altar will split. Its ashes will pour out. Jeroboam stretches out his hand and orders the prophet seized. His hand withers in mid-gesture, frozen and useless. The altar splits. Ashes spill onto the ground. The king pleads for intercession. The man of God prays. And the hand is restored. Jeroboam offers hospitality, a meal, a gift. The prophet refuses. He repeats the command like a boundary line. No bread, no water, no return route. He leaves Bethel by another road. This story ends with that prophet dead, a liar unpunished, and the false altar still standing. The old prophet living in Bethel hears what happened. His sons were at the altar when the man of God spoke, when the sign occurred, when Jeroboam's hand withered and was restored. They come home and report everything. The old prophet asks which way the man of God went. His sons tell him. He has them saddle a donkey and rides out after him. He finds the man of God sitting under a tree and asks if he is the man of God from Judah. The prophet confirms his identity. The old man invites him home to eat. The man of God repeats the prohibition, word for word. He cannot eat or drink in this place. He cannot return by the way he came. The command is explicit. But the old prophet counters with a claim of his own. I too am a prophet as you are, he says, and an angel spoke to me by the word of the Lord, saying, Bring him back with you to your house, so that he may eat bread and drink water. It's the oldest kind of spiritual fraud. God gave me an update. The text states plainly, he was lying to him. The man of God returns to Bethel with the old prophet. He eats, he drinks. Two prophets sit at a table in Bethel. One has just delivered a public oracle authenticated by a miracle. The other has used prophetic status and the language of divine revelation to contradict a known command. Prophetic speech is supposed to cohere. A word from the Lord should not cancel another word from the Lord without explanation, without revocation, without a clear change in circumstance. Yet here, the claim of an angelic message delivered to a second prophet is presented as sufficient grounds to override the first prophet's direct commission. The man of God knows what he was told. He has already refused Jeroboam's hospitality on the basis of that command. He has verbally repeated the prohibition twice. But when the old prophet invokes his own status and frames the contradiction as a new revelation, the man of God accepts it. He allows a later, unverified, mediated claim to displace the word he received directly. The lie did not deny the command. It claimed a new instruction that overrode it. The tension is not between two unclear instructions. It is between an explicit command and a competing assertion that the command no longer applies. While they sit at the table, the word comes to the old prophet. He cries out the judgment. Because you have defied the word of the Lord, and have not kept the command the Lord your God gave you, you came back and ate bread and drank water in the place where he told you not to eat or drink. Your body will not be buried in the tomb of your ancestors. The oracle is public, spoken aloud in the presence of the man it condemns. The same mouth that delivered the lie now delivers the judgment. There is no recorded explanation for why the true word comes through the lying prophet. The text simply moves from lie to judgment without reconciling the contradiction. After the meal, the old prophet saddles the donkey for the man of God, who leaves. On the road, a lion meets him and kills him. His body falls and lies on the road. The donkey stands beside it. The lion stands beside it. Neither the lion nor the donkey moves. Passers-by see the tableau and report it in the city where the old prophet lives. When he hears the report, the old prophet identifies the body. It is the man of God who defied the word of the Lord. The Lord has given him over to the lion, which has mauled him and killed him, as the word of the Lord had warned him. Prophetic authority in Israel is supposed to function as a counterweight to royal and priestly power. Prophets speak for God when kings and priests act outside their mandate. They announce judgment when the cult is compromised. They authenticate their messages through signs, fulfilled predictions, and alignment with prior revelation. The man of God from Judah performs all the expected functions. He confronts a king. He condemns an illegitimate altar. He provides a confirming sign that happens immediately. He refuses royal patronage. He demonstrates independence from the political structure he has been sent to challenge. But the system depends on the community's ability to distinguish true prophetic speech from false. And it depends on the prophet's own ability to discern when a claim made in the name of the Lord is actually from the Lord. The old prophet at Bethel occupies an ambiguous position. He is called a prophet. He lives in Bethel, the center of Jeroboam's alternative worship system. His sons attend the altar that the man of God has just condemned. Yet he is not denounced in the text as a false prophet in the formal sense. He simply lies. He uses the formulaic language of Revelation, "An angel spoke to me by the word of the Lord," to authenticate a message that never came. The only check is the original command itself, which remains in force until explicitly revoked. The man of God disregards that check. He treats the old prophet's claim as superior to his own direct commission, transferring authority from the explicit word to the mediated word, from the command he knows to the claim he cannot verify. The lie succeeds because it exploits the structure of prophetic legitimacy. The old prophet does not present himself as a rival. He presents himself as a fellow insider. "I too am a prophet as you are." He does not challenge the content of the original command. He claims to have received an update, a clarification, a divine amendment delivered through an angel. And within the narrative, later instructions can follow earlier ones. That possibility is what the lie exploits. But the claim of new revelation also opens a vulnerability. If any prophet can assert that an angel has spoken and thereby override prior commands, then the stability of any given word is only as strong as the prophet's willingness to resist later competing claims. The man of God is not tricked by a stranger. He is tricked by someone who speaks his language, who knows the formulas, who occupies the same role. The old prophet's lie works because it mimics legitimate revelation closely enough that rejecting it would require the man of God to assert the absolute priority of his own experience over the testimony of another recognized prophet. He does not make that assertion. He defers. And the deferral is immediately punished. The death of the man of God does not occur in private. The lion kills him on a public road. His body lies exposed, flanked by a lion and a donkey that do not behave as animals typically behave. Lions do not stand guard over corpses. Donkeys do not remain calm in the presence of lions. The scene is constructed as a visible sign, reported by multiple passers-by and interpreted by the old prophet as the fulfillment of the judgment he himself pronounced. The public nature of the death matters because it turns the prophet's disobedience into a communal lesson about the binding force of the original command. But it also raises the problem of prophetic credibility in acute form. The community at Bethel now has direct experience of a prophet who performed a confirmed miracle, spoke a long-range oracle, refused royal favor, and then died for disobedience. They also have direct experience of a prophet who lied in the name of the Lord and then spoke a true oracle of judgment. There is no simple correlation between prophetic reliability and prophetic outcome. The lying prophet survives. The obedient-turned-disobedient prophet dies. The sign of the split altar is validated. The oracle about Josiah is preserved. But the prophet who carried both is removed, and the prophet who undermined him remains in place as the custodian of his memory. The old prophet retrieves the body. He lays it on the donkey, brings it back to Bethel, and mourns over it with the words, "Alas, my brother." He buries the man of God in his own tomb and instructs his sons to bury him beside the man of God when he dies. He tells them of the word that he cried out by the word of the Lord against the altar at Bethel and against all the shrines on the high places in the cities of Samaria will surely come to pass. The old prophet thus positions himself as the guarantor of the very oracle his deception helped to compromise. He affirms the truth of the man of God's message while having directly caused the man of God's death. He binds his own posthumous identity to the condemned altar, ensuring that when the prophecy is fulfilled, when Josiah comes and burns bones on that altar, the old prophet's tomb will be linked to the event. The man of God is denied burial in the tomb of his ancestors, the honor and continuity that belong to a faithful servant. Instead, his body rests in the tomb of the man who deceived him, in the city whose altar he condemned. Physically absorbed into the religious landscape he was sent to challenge. Jeroboam witnesses, or hears of all of this. He experiences the withering of his hand and its restoration. He sees the altar split and the ashes pour out. He learns that the prophet who performed these signs is dead, killed by a lion on the road after defying the word. The narrative then records his response. The text states that even after this, Jeroboam did not turn from his ways, but once more appointed priests for the high places from all sorts of people. Anyone who wanted to become a priest, he consecrated for the high places. The death of the man of God does not produce the intended systemic effect. The king does not dismantle the cult at Bethel. He does not remove the unauthorized priests. He does not stop the practices that the prophet was sent to condemn. Instead, he continues and expands them, ordaining anyone who wishes to serve, ensuring that the alternative worship system becomes more entrenched, not less. The text explains the long-term cost. This was the sin of the house of Jeroboam that led to its downfall and to its destruction from the face of the earth. The refusal to respond to the prophetic warning seals the dynasty's fate. But that destruction is future. In the immediate aftermath, the system the man of God was sent to challenge remains fully operational. The prophetic intervention achieves a sign, delivers an oracle, and produces a dramatic judgment. It does not achieve reform. It does not dismantle the illegitimate altar. It does not stop the king. It removes the prophet who carried the message and leaves the structure intact. The old prophet's deception is never directly punished in the narrative. He does not suffer the fate of the man of God. He is not condemned by a subsequent oracle. He continues to live in Bethel, continues to function as a prophetic figure, and becomes the one who interprets and preserves the meaning of the man of God's death. The community is left with a case study in the fragility of prophetic authority when competing claims are allowed to override explicit commands without a mechanism for resolution. They are left with the knowledge that a prophet can lie in the name of the Lord and still speak true judgment afterward. They are left with a dead prophet whose mission was validated by signs but terminated by his own failure to maintain the priority of the word he was given. The cost is externalized across multiple parties. The man of God loses his life and his ancestral burial. His family and community in Judah lose the returning prophet and the honor associated with his faithful completion of the mission. The house of Jeroboam absorbs the long-term cost of continued disobedience, facing dynastic destruction as the direct consequence of the king's refusal to change course. The population of the northern kingdom lives under a hardened, counterfeit religious system that becomes more embedded with each passing year, eventually contributing to the broader collapse documented in later biblical history. The priests of the high places face a future sentence already announced. Josiah will sacrifice them on the altar they serve and burn human bones on it, desecrating the site and eliminating its personnel. The prophetic institution itself absorbs a credibility cost. The Bethel community, and anyone who hears this account, must now navigate a religious environment where prophetic claims can contradict each other, where lying and truth can come from the same mouth, and where obedience to one prophetic voice can constitute disobedience to God. There were alternative paths available in the structure of the narrative. The man of God could have maintained exclusive loyalty to the original command. He had already articulated it twice, demonstrating his full awareness. When confronted with the old prophet's competing claim, he could have reasserted the priority of the direct word over the mediated word and continued his journey without stopping. The fact that the command was explicit, that it had not been revoked, and that the man of God himself had used it to refuse the king's offer all point to the viability of this path. But the man of God chose differently. He allowed the later claim to displace the earlier command. The narrative does not provide psychological commentary. It simply records that he returned, ate and drank, and that the judgment followed immediately. The structural constant that blocked this alternative once it was disregarded is that obedience to the first word remained the requirement throughout. There was no actual change in divine intent. There was only a false claim of change. Once the man of God acted on the false claim, the possibility of completing his mission without judgment collapsed. Jeroboam also had an alternative. He could have responded to the signs and the death with repentance. When he had direct experience of divine power, his hand withered and was restored. The altar split in front of him. He witnessed or heard of the prophet's dramatic death by lion, a death that was publicly interpreted as divine judgment. These events together constituted a comprehensive warning about the trajectory of his religious policies. But Jeroboam did not turn from his practices. The narrative states this in absolute terms. The political calculus that drove the establishment of Bethel and Dan in the first place remained unchanged. Jeroboam feared that if his people continued to go to Jerusalem to offer sacrifices, their loyalty would return to Rehoboam, king of Judah, and they would kill him. That fear, rooted in the vulnerability of a newly divided kingdom and a contested succession, produced the alternative cult. Just the prophetic warning did not alter the underlying incentive structure. It did not remove the political threat Jeroboam perceived. So the warning was absorbed as one more ignored sign in a pattern of ignored signs, and the machinery of the condemned cult continued. The narrative closes without resolution. The man of God is buried in the old prophet's tomb in Bethel, far from his family and his homeland. The old prophet lives on, having mourned the man he deceived, and having positioned himself as the long-term witness to the fulfilled prophecy. Jeroboam's cult remains in place, its priests multiplying, its altars active. The oracle about Josiah stands in the record, waiting for a fulfillment that will not come for generations. The lion and the donkey, having stood motionless beside the corpse on the road, disappear from the narrative. Are their role as living signs complete? The community at Bethel is left to interpret what they have seen: a prophet who performed miracles and died for disobedience, and a prophet who lied and lived to tell the truth. There is no mechanism provided for preventing a recurrence. There is no procedural reform to clarify how competing prophetic claims should be adjudicated. There is no judgment pronounced on the old prophet for his deception. There is only the unresolved tension between the validated oracle and the failure of the one who carried it. The death resolves nothing. It does not dismantle the cult. It does not convert the king. It does not restore the prophetic institution's compromised credibility. It removes the faithful turned disobedient messenger and leaves the system he was sent to challenge fully operational. The externalized costs continue to accumulate. Jeroboam's house will be destroyed from the face of the earth. The priests of the high places will be sacrificed on the altar they serve. The northern kingdom will continue under a religious system built on violated norms until its eventual collapse. And the prophetic sphere will carry forward the unresolved problem embedded in this narrative. When two voices both claim to speak for God and one is lying, How does the faithful servant know which to obey? A prophet dies. A liar lives. And the altar keeps burning. The text does not answer. It only records what happened when the wrong choice was made, and it records that the wrong choice was punished, and it records that the punishment changed nothing about the system that made the choice necessary in the first place.